Think about the last time you were in real trouble. The 2 in the morning kind. The kind that does not fit into a text message. Now be honest with yourself. How many people could you actually call? Not people you like or follow or send a birthday emoji to once a year. Call at 2 in the morning, knowing they would get out of bed, get dressed, get in the car, and come. For a lot of us, in an age of 1,000 contacts and almost no confidants, that number is frighteningly small. We are more connected than any humans who have ever lived, and lonelier than almost any generation on record. We network, we optimize, we keep it professional, we protect our peace, and somewhere in all that careful self-interest, we quietly stopped building the one thing that used to hold a whole life together. A small band of people who are yours and to whom you belong, no matter what. Almost 200 years ago, a French storyteller wrote a giant galloping adventure that pretends to be about swords and secrets and a diamond necklace, and is really about exactly that missing thing. Everyone files it under costume drama, plumed hats, horses, a great deal of dueling. But strip away the rapiers, and the Three Musketeers is one of the most seductive arguments ever written for a way of living we have almost forgotten. That your life is not a private project to be optimized alone, but something you throw in with other people, all the way, for keeps. This is not just a swashbuckler, it is a love letter to loyalty and a quiet warning about what loyalty actually costs. This is Alexandre Dumas' Three Musketeers in about 20 minutes. The book is The Three Musketeers, published in 1844 by Alexandre Dumas, who serialized it in a Paris newspaper and had the whole country breathless for the next installment, the streaming cliffhanger of its day. Dumas was one of the most astonishing figures in French letters, the grandson of an enslaved woman in the Caribbean and the son of a brilliant black general in Napoleon's armies, a man who wrote at a furious gallop, often with collaborators feeding him history, and who poured out plays and novels by the hundreds. He set this story 2 centuries before his own time, in the France of the 1620s, under the weak young King Louis XIII and his ruthless, brilliant chief minister, Cardinal Richelieu, the real power behind the throne. It is a world of court intrigue, where a gentleman's whole worth is measured in courage and a quick blade. Here is why the book never died. Dumas essentially invented the modern adventure story. The band of mismatched heroes, the impossible mission, the charismatic villain, the breakneck plot that never lets you breathe. Every heist crew, every superhero team, every found family saga you have ever loved traces its bloodline back to this book. But underneath the spectacle, Dumas smuggled in something warmer and more durable than any sword fight. A study of friendship and fierce loyalty so appealing that 180 years later, we still quote its motto without knowing where it came from. The costumes are old, the longing the book answers, to belong to a band that would die for you, has not aged a day. Here is the whole book in one sentence. The Three Musketeers is the story of a penniless, hot-headed young man who rides into Paris with nothing but a sword and enormous nerve, falls in with 3 older soldiers who become his brothers, and discovers, through a mission that nearly kills them all, both the intoxicating power of total loyalty and the terrible price it can demand. That is the engine under all the duels and disguises. Not really swords against swords. It is a story about what it means to be all in for other people, in a world that mostly rewards looking out for yourself. Dumas gives his heroes a code so absolute it sounds almost mad to modern ears. That an injury to one of them is an injury to all. that they will spend their lives, their blood, and their futures on one another's fights without stopping to ask whether it is worth it. And then, being honest, he shows you the bill. We will walk it in 5 beats. First, the Gascon with nothing but nerve, how D'Artagnan arrives with his father's reckless advice ringing in his ears. Second, enemies into brothers, the duel that forges the famous 4. Third, the Queen's diamond studs, the mission that tests whether their loyalty is just talk. Fourth, Milady, the enemy who is every bit their equal and who shows the darker face of a buried past. And fifth, the price of the code, what winning actually costs, and why the book's last note is not a cheer but a shadow. 5 beats, 1 immortal motto, and a 200-year-old answer to the loneliest question you can ask yourself. First beat, the Gascon with nothing but nerve. The book opens with a young man named D'Artagnan leaving his family's threadbare estate in the south of France to seek his fortune in Paris. He is proud, poor, quick to take offense, and mounted on a horse so absurd, a bright yellow aging nag, that people laugh at him in the street, which makes him want to fight them. He has almost nothing to his name. What he has instead is a piece of advice from his father that he treats like scripture, and it tells you everything about the world he enters. Never fear quarrels, but seek adventures, the old soldier tells him. And then, even more startling to our ears, fight on all occasions. Fight the more for duels being forbidden, since consequently there is twice as much courage in fighting. Sit with how wild that is. A father sends his boy into the world and tells him, essentially, that the point of a life is to risk it. That safety is not the goal, that courage is the one currency that cannot be faked, and that a rule against fighting is only a reason to fight more bravely. It is reckless and thrilling, and exactly the fuel a young person needs when they have no money, no connections, and no cushion to fall back on. Watch the modern shape of it. This is every person who arrives in a new city with a duffel bag and a dream and no safety net. The immigrant, the graduate, the founder, who has nothing to trade but the willingness to show up and risk looking like a fool. And in a story about loyalty that matters, because the same recklessness that makes D'Artagnan pick fights is what will one day make him throw his whole life behind his friends without hesitating. Second beat, enemies into brothers. Within hours of reaching Paris, D'Artagnan manages to insult not 1, but 3 of the King's Musketeers, the elite, swaggering soldiers he most wants to join, and each of them gravely challenges him to a duel. The comedy is perfect. He has agreed to fight 3 separate men, one after another, in the same afternoon, behind the same lonely convent wall. Athos, the noble and secretly heartbroken one. Porthos, the vain and boisterous one. Aramis, the elegant one, always half tempted by the priesthood. But just as the first duel is about to begin, the cardinal's guards appear, and dueling is illegal. Suddenly the 4 of them, who were about to spill each other's blood, are on the same side against a common enemy. D'Artagnan does not have to join the musketeers' fight, it is not his quarrel. But he draws his sword and stands with them anyway, and together the 4 of them rout the guards. In that instant, 3 rivals become his brothers, and they seal it with the vow the whole world still repeats without knowing its source. All for one, one for all. That is the emotional core of the entire book, and notice what actually creates it. Not similarity, they could not be more different. Not convenience. What welds them is a shared fight and a shared risk. They become a band because they bled for each other before they had any reason to. Look at your own life and you will see the pattern. The friendships that go deepest are almost never the frictionless ones. They are the people you went through something with, the all-nighter, the crisis, the loss, the ones who showed up when it cost them something. You cannot network your way into that kind of bond. You can only earn it by being the person who draws their sword when it is not even their fight. Third beat, the Queen's diamond studs. Now Dumas tests whether all that soaring talk of loyalty is real, and he does it with a plot worthy of a spy thriller. The young Queen of France, trapped in a loveless marriage, has secretly given a keepsake to the man she loves, the English Duke of Buckingham, the diamond studs which His Majesty gave the Queen. Cardinal Richelieu, who wants to destroy her, learns of it and springs a trap. He persuades the king to demand that the Queen wear those exact jewels at an upcoming ball, knowing they are now across the sea in London. If she cannot produce them, she is ruined. So D'Artagnan and his three friends take on a mission that is, strictly speaking, none of their business: to ride across France, cross to England, and bring the studs back in time, with the Cardinal's agents trying to kill them at every stage. And here the code turns from a slogan into blood. One by one, the friends fall along the road, wounded, waylaid, left behind, each throwing his body in the way, willing to be the one who does not make it so long as the mission does. Only D'Artagnan reaches London and races back with the jewels just in time. Notice what Dumas is showing you. The measure of loyalty is never the toast at the dinner. It is the moment someone stays behind to hold the door while you get out. We all know people who will say, "all for one" when it is free. The friends who matter are the ones who prove it when it costs them. That is the difference between a network and a brotherhood. One shows up for the party, the other shows up for the fight. Fourth beat, Milady. Every great story about loyalty needs a great enemy, and Dumas gives us one of the most unforgettable villains in all of literature. A beautiful, brilliant, utterly ruthless agent of the Cardinal, known only as Milady de Winter. She is not a monster who lurks in shadows. She is charming, gracious, irresistible, and she uses exactly those gifts as weapons. She lies, seduces, poisons, and manipulates her way through the second half of the book. And for a long time, she seems unstoppable, precisely because no one can believe that someone so lovely could be so lethal. Then comes the chilling revelation. Athos, the noblest of the four, recognizes her, because years ago, before he became a soldier drowning his past in wine, he was a young lord who married a girl of mysterious origins and discovered, too late, a secret burned into her body. When her shoulder is at last bared, the mark is there for all to see. "A fleur-de-lis," said Athos. She was branded. In that age, a lily-shaped brand was the mark of a convicted criminal. The past she had buried, seared into her skin where no charm could erase it. Here is what makes Milady more than a plot device. She is the dark mirror of the Musketeers' own code. They are bound by loyalty. She is bound by nothing. They give themselves to other people. She uses other people entirely for herself. She is what a brilliant, fearless person becomes with all the courage and none of the loyalty. Pure self-interest with a beautiful face. And she is a warning you will meet in real life. The most dangerous people are rarely the obvious ones. They are the charming ones everyone adores, the ones whose hidden brand you keep explaining away because you would rather not see it. Fifth beat, the price of the code. This is where Dumas stops being a crowd pleaser and tells the truth. Because loyalty, this absolute, does not come free, and by the end, the bill lands hard. Milady, cornered at last, commits one final, unforgivable act. She murders the gentle young woman D'Artagnan loves, Constance, poisoning her almost in his arms. And so the four friends do something not dashing at all. They hunt Milady down, and on a dark riverbank at night, they hold a grim, self-appointed trial and have her executed. It is justice, and it is also chilling. Good men driven to a killing, the code that bound them now carrying them into the dark. D'Artagnan gets what he wanted at the start. The cardinal, impressed by the very courage that made him such a nuisance, hands him a blank commission, making him a lieutenant of the Musketeers. His fortune is made. And yet the book's final pages are quiet, almost sad. When he offers the prized commission first to Athos, his mentor will not take it. "Keep the commission, it is yours," Athos tells him, and then, unbearably, adds that D'Artagnan has purchased it dearly enough. He has. He has won, but the woman he loved is dead. The enemy's blood is on their hands, and the Brotherhood is already beginning to scatter to its separate fates. That is the mature heart under all the swashbuckling. Belonging to people completely is the richest thing a life can hold, and it is never without cost. To be all in for others is to be exposed to grief, to loss, to the terrible things you might do for the people you love. Dumas does not tell you it is not worth it. He tells you to go in with open eyes. So what does it all add up to? On the surface, the Three Musketeers is pure entertainment. Duels, disguises, midnight rides, a villain you love to hate. But underneath the spectacle, Dumas has written one of our most enduring meditations on loyalty. What it gives, what it demands, and why we ache for it even now. Walk back through the beats. It starts with a young man who has nothing but nerve, taught by his father that a life is meant to be risked, not hoarded. That recklessness leads him not to glory alone, but to other people. Three rivals who become brothers the moment they fight side by side, and swear that an injury to one is an injury to all. Their bond is then tested by a mission that turns the slogan into sacrifice, each of them willing to fall so the others can ride on. They face an enemy who is their perfect opposite. All their brilliance and courage with none of their loyalty, self-interest wearing a beautiful face. And in the end, they pay. They win, but they lose the innocent. They are stained by what they do, and they learn that to love people this much is to be woundable. Dumas's genius is that he never lets the loyalty be cheap or the cost be hidden. He gives you the intoxication and the invoice in the same book. The four friends are magnificent not because they are safe, but because they are exposed, because they chose each other over their own self-interest, again and again, knowing what it might cost. In a world that keeps telling you to travel light and trust no one, they are proof of the older, harder, better idea. That a life is worth most when you throw it in with other people. Here is the one thing to carry out of this book and into your week. Stop asking who can help you, and start asking who you would stand beside when it is not even your fight. The Musketeers do not build their brotherhood by networking or by finding people who can advance their careers. D'Artagnan becomes one of them the instant he draws his sword in a quarrel that was never his, and that single choice, to show up for people before there is anything in it for him, is what earns him a band of brothers for life. You cannot optimize your way into it. You build it exactly one way, by being the person who shows up when it costs you something. So this week, do the unstrategic thing. Answer the call at 2 in the morning. Take the blame that protects a friend. Be the one who stands with someone when there is no advantage in it at all. Because that, and only that, is how you find out who will do the same for you. And carry Dumas's warning too. Loving people completely will expose you. Belonging to a band means their losses become your losses. But the alternative, the careful, guarded, all-for-myself life we have quietly drifted into, is not actually safer. It is just lonelier. The 4 friends risked everything on one another and paid for it, and the book still makes you desperate to have what they had. That should tell you something. An all-in life, with the right few people, is the only kind worth the risk. Alexandre Dumas dressed his deepest idea in feathers and steel, but the idea itself is dead serious. That the richest thing a human life can contain is a small band of people you belong to without condition, and that such belonging is never free, never safe, and always, always worth it. He gave us 4 impossible friends, 1 immortal motto, and a mission that turned a slogan into blood, and never once pretended loyalty comes without a wound. If this walk through the Three Musketeers gave you something worth keeping, subscribe. A new classic every week, faithfully, in about 20 minutes. Next time, we ride from the ballrooms of Paris to something colder and stranger. Thomas Hobbes's Leviathan, the terrifying argument that without one great power holding us all in awe, human life collapses into a war of everyone against everyone, and that we trade our freedom for safety far more willingly than we admit. And tell me in the comments, in your own life, who are the people you would draw your sword for when it is not even your fight? And have you ever been on either end of that all for one, when it truly cost someone something? I read every reply.